This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to the Journey Step by Step Christian Podcast. I am your host, Karen Beach. And today, we're going to talk testimony, and we're talking to Requita Bryd. And when she came across my email, I thought, I've got to have her on my show because she's talking about being purposefully single. And if you've listened to this show, you know I'm single. And I was recently online, and there was a debate going on about marriage and relationships. And this woman who had just explained her relationship, which wasn't that great, a lot of infidelity, a lot of stuff. But she ended her comment by saying, well, at least I'm not single. Like being single is some sort of scourge. Like if you're not married, why do you even exist? And I thought it was funny because I would rather be single than be in a bad relationship. And so what I pray for, because I would like to be married, I would like to have, someone in my life, but I want to have the right person. And if I can't have the right person, well, I'd rather be single. I do a lot. I do a lot with my church. I do a lot with my friends. I have a pretty good life. I'm not going to give that up to just anybody. And so when Requita's name came across my desk, when she said she wanted to talk about being purposefully single, I thought, this is a woman I need to talk to. This is a woman that has something to share with all of us. So, Requita, welcome to the journey.
Thank you.
And I know it's late where you are. You're in Riyadh. I'm going to keep this straight to the point so you can get some sleep. But why do you call it purposefully single? Why are you purposefully single?
Yes, so I guess I'll start from the very beginning. And it started for me when I was 13 years old. I was in the 7th grade, and I was taking my first sex education class. And there was a video of a woman who was getting married, and she was a virgin when she got married. And it was at that moment that I made the commitment to myself and God that I wanted to be a virgin when I got married. And so I'm 27 now, so it's been 14 years later, and I'm still believing and expecting God to send me the right person at the right time. And I have accomplished so much over the last 14 years that I want to share my story and let other women know that you can be purposefully single and you can do so much. And so we should use this time to really figure out who we are and to really get in our purpose and to do the will that God has given us to do.
Right. And that's what Paul says, that sometimes, it's better to be single. And that the way I take that, it doesn't mean better to be single forever, although that is the case for some of us, and that's fine. But while you are in that time of singleness, it is a time to do the things that God has designed for you to do, to live the life that you're designed to live, and not just sit there waiting.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me about some of the things you've done. You're in Riyadh, so that has a lot of us beat right there. But what are some of the things that being single, purposefully single, has enabled you to do?
So the biggest thing was over the past year, I actually founded my first organization. It's called Regally Refined, LLC. And basically, I started it because I wanted to empower and inspire women who felt stuck to really transition from feelings of fear to feelings of faith. And I have spent a lot of time coaching and mentoring women and really helping women figure out what their vision is and how they can go about pursuing that. But in addition to that, I really have spent a lot of time just traveling. So I've lived in 4 different countries. I've been to more than 20. And so I just love traveling and learning about history and meeting new people and learning about their culture. So that has really, being single has really opened many doors for me in terms of being able to, expand in my career, but also just travel and do the things that I really love.
It's funny you would say that because I'm significantly older than you, almost twice your age. But when I was a little bit older than you, I remember going to visit my best friend, and we went by her sister's house. And her sister was married, had the kids, had literally bought a house down the street from where we grew up. She was doing what a lot of people would call living the life. She's got the kids, she's got the husband, she's got the job, the house. And we were in her garage, and I will never forget it. God said to me, "This isn't the path I have for you." And it was so loud and it was so clear, I almost jumped up. And, I'm in the garage and there's nobody right where I heard that voice. And all of us have a different path. And I think what we need to do, instead of looking at what society says we should have, look at what we should have, what God wants us to have.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I think that when we start doing that, a lot of people, we would just save ourselves so much time, so much hurt and so much dysfunction. I think when we recognize that we were put on this earth for a purpose, we'll understand that everyone has a different purpose. And so we won't try to replicate someone else's story. And so I think it's very crucial in understanding that.
I think so too. And like you, I haven't traveled to a bunch of countries, but I have lived in 6 or 7 different states. And I've, written a short that became a film starring Danny Glover. I've gone on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and that's how I got my house, and done different things. And I wouldn't have been able to move to California. I wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that I've done had I been married. So
exactly.
I think, it's for a reason, and God designed us all. And another thing I'll say, because you're like, I came on this show to be interviewed, and this girl is just talking. But anyway, when I look at being single, and I think you're smart to wait for the Lord to put the right person in your life. If you look back at the Bible, which we all should be looking at. But if you look back, God told Abraham and Sarah that he was going to make them parents at their advanced age. Sarah laughed. She just laughed outright. She said, "That's the craziest thing ever." But several years passed after God said that, and Sarah still wasn't pregnant. She's even older now than she was when she got that word. So what does she do? She lets her husband get with his, slave girl, and they have a baby that way. And that's not what God told her. But so often we want to make something happen instead of waiting on God to make it happen his way. And I think a lot of people do that when it comes to being single. Well, I know God wants me to get married, so here's this guy. I'm just going to marry him. No, that's not what God maybe wanted for you. Maybe you should have let him make the choice instead of you making it for him.
Yes. And I also think that, like, once we understand that, we are all here for a purpose, right? We have to do God's work, right? Once we understand that, we can get out of our own feelings and emotions. So, once you accept what God has said you're supposed to do, then voila, you don't have to, try to fix anything. So it's just accepting your will and learning to live that rather than trying to do what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, or trying to speak for or think for God.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people do that. in our human arrogance, we think we know more when really we don't know. I don't know who my husband's going to be. I'm not going to just randomly pick a guy and say, well, God, I need to be married. No, I'm going to wait and see who God puts in my path. But a lot of people don't want to do that. So what would you say? What do you say to people that want this scourge of singleness to end?
I would tell them to wait, be purposeful, and find something that keeps you focused on something greater than you. And I believe we kind of quoted this scripture before. It's from 1 Corinthians 7:8. To the unmarried and to the widow, I say that it's good for them to remain as I am, right? And just understand that life is much more than being in a relationship or being married. And so really, really pursue out those desires and those wishes that you have always had.
Right, because those desires that you've always had that are embedded have been put there for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Those are your gifts.
And yeah, use those gifts instead of waiting for one specific gift to arrive.
I like how that sounds.
But
I like that.
What do people say to you when you let them know that you're a virgin and you're waiting for God to manifest the right person in your life? What kind of feedback have you gotten from that?
I've gotten a lot of different feedback. I've gotten some supporters, but I think the most interesting one that I got was from another young lady who was married. And she was actually a couple of years younger than me. And this happened maybe 2 years ago. And she said, why are you waiting? You know, what if your husband cheats on you? And in that moment, I was so shocked because what I realized she was doing was trying to talk me out of my purpose. You know, it wasn't about being perfect and it wasn't really about being a virgin. It was about just waiting for the right person, for God to bring into my life, doing what God said do. And it was just so interesting how to her it was just about this sex thing, but it wasn't. It was a larger investment in myself and investment into my God to do the right thing. And so that was probably one of the most interesting experiences I've had in terms of, you know, someone being very cynical about my choice.
I can imagine that. And a lot of people would try to dissuade you. People will tell you, you don't buy a car without testing it out or something to that nature, but they don't necessarily get the God component.
Exactly.
You know, you can't leave him out of the discussion.
And it's a sacrifice and it's a commitment and it's something that I want to do, you know, so it's not about other people. And I think too many people get caught up in the other peopleness of pleasing other people and doing what other people want you to do. But, you know, it's my choice. I'm owning it. And this is what makes me feel empowered. And I'm not going to let anyone talk me out of that. You know, it's a done deal for me.
Which is how it should be. You made a decision, you made a commitment, and now you're honoring that commitment. And it's a commitment that's higher than the commitment to some guy or whoever that person is. It's a commitment to God. And that's the one that should be taken seriously.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting that you say that because what we were speaking about was how a lot of women idolize this thing called marriage, or they idolize their husbands. And I don't think they understand how they're walking in idolatry and how dangerous that is. So, you know, you shouldn't get married for people. It's about God. And like you said before, we can't leave God out of it. And once we try to take him out or leave him out, we're headed for destruction. And so for me, it's just really humbling and it's very important that people know that that is the biggest piece of it for me about being committed to what I promised God that I would do and what he confirmed that I should be doing.
And to answer that question, the woman asked you, well, what if your husband cheats? Well, what if any man cheats? You have to deal with what happens when and if it happens. And you're in a better place if you're putting God first than if you just randomly made a decision, and you're going to make the decision that's best for you, regardless of what someone else thinks. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. It makes more sense than just following trends. And the trends today, I commend you. It was hard back in my day, but it has to be even harder to stick to your guns now.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of hostility towards even mentioning God nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. I think the one other place of refuge for me has either been education or my career. I think it goes also back to like purpose. So during this time for me, I found my purpose. And when you're so purpose driven, or even when you're career minded, that's what like you're so focused on. And so it becomes so easy to just not even think about, being in a relationship, and, because you have other priorities. Yeah, I'm married to my career, if you understand. Like, that's my commitment right now.
And two, you have to be careful not to make that your idol either, because a lot of people do that as well, or use a career as an escape from a relationship. Or, you know what I mean? You have to be careful when you're looking at your career. I know, for me, it's my career, but it's also my friendships, my girlfriends, that I have to keep that in check, because that's not the priority, or it shouldn't be the ultimate priority.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
So when you are going about your business, living your life, are you doing anything to meet that person, or are you just leaving it 100% up to God?
I think this is a really good question. Generally, I have just left it up to God. I've battled with trying to figure out when will be the right time for me to start dating. And it's safe to say that I haven't been on a date since January 2018. And so for me, I'm just waiting for the right person to walk, in my life. I've been introduced to a couple of people, but it didn't work out. And so I'm not going to go out of my way. I'm not going to hop on a website. I'm not going to do the social media thing. Whatever happens is what happens.
True. Now, when you went on those dates and it didn't sort of work out, what kept you focused on your ultimate goal? Because a lot of people would have gotten discouraged. Or did you get discouraged?
I didn't get discouraged because I know what I'm expecting and I know what's to come. It's just like when you have a goal and something doesn't work out, you don't give up. You just remember the goal, remember the vision, and you keep moving forward.
Very true. Very true. Now, how have men that you've dated reacted to you saving yourself for marriage?
Oh, I've gotten a round of reactions. I've gotten honor and respect for it. I've even gotten people who would laugh at me because I'm 27. And so people think it's kind of weird, or, it's strange, and so when that happens, I know he is not my husband for sure. So because I know that my husband in some sense will be practicing abstinence. So he would be supportive of that decision and he would respect that.
Okay. I would imagine, just like that woman who talked to you about what if your husband cheated, you're coming from a different place. And I would imagine you would know it if you found someone that was coming from that same place.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And It's so interesting how people think of the negatives. Like, what could go wrong? Nobody thinks of that when you get married, right? You court and you marry someone expecting the best, and so you do what you have to do to make sure that that doesn't happen. And so it's so interesting how people will try to come up with every worst case scenario to try to talk you out of doing something that your heart wants.
True, because they want you to want what everyone else wants or what everyone else appears to have.
Yep. I knew when I was in that conversation that I was talking to the devil. Literally, that was a test.
And you passed.
Yes.
And you have to look at it like that because, we're told to be of the world, but not in the world. And to me, that was someone trying to get you to be in the world, to look at it the way everybody else looks at it. But I personally think you're doing the right thing, because think about all the things that you're avoiding by not having sex. How many women end up, pregnant or with some kind of disease as a result of that. Back when I was growing up, the other thing that you were risking was your reputation, but I don't even think that's a factor anymore.
Yeah, no, it's cool to be that way now.
And that just goes to show you the way the world is changing and getting further away from a Christian or biblical principle. And I don't know about you, but just talking about your faith in general, a lot of times you're met with hostility.
And I think that's because, I think it's because people generally, like we were saying earlier with the young lady who I was speaking to, I think it's just demonic. And I think people literally want you to be miserable like them. And so whenever you think greater than what's around you, people don't like that.
True. Crabs in a barrel, really.
Exactly.
People want to pull you down to where they are. And it's so funny you would say that because for a long time I was off of social media. Sometimes I'm on it more often now, but I'm about to get off of it again because there's so much negativity and drama. And it's like people want to draw you into their negativity and drama. And really, when you say people have drama, it's just that they have a bunch of negativity. Yep. And they keep that negativity going. So if you make the decision to step back, not only do you kind of differentiate yourself, but in some ways, I think you make yourself a target for those people.
Yeah, I agree. So you kind of have to stay hidden, but in plain sight, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, and just not get pulled into that. Like, people have asked me for my opinion, and I say the same thing. Well, I don't really have anything to say about that. And that is how I'll leave things. I'm not going to say something so that you can use it to draw me in. I don't really have anything to say about that. End of discussion.
Yeah. And some people will even get angry at you for not having anything to say.
Yeah, but like you said, that's when you know it's the devil. That's when you know that you're trying to be lured into somewhere where you don't really belong. What do you see for yourself, let's say, in the next 5 years?
Two things. I definitely would like to have been found by the next 5 years. But I also want to just expand my ministry and my reach. I want to be able to speak to more women about singleness and just about, choosing to live in their purpose and their vision. So those are my two big goals over the next 5 years.
Right, because you have the time and the ability to live out that vision and that purpose when you're not catering to someone else. Because when you're married, you have your spouse to think about, but when it's just you have more time available for that. So it is the time to live in your purpose.
Yes.
But it's been so nice talking to you about singleness and how to use this time wisely that you're single. You know, whether you stay single or not single, it is a time to do your best for the Lord, to live out your purpose, your vision. And I think you're on the right track. And you don't have to invite me to the wedding, but just send me a little quick email and let me know.
Oh, awesome. I will do it.
All right. And so I'm going to end the show, and I'm going to end it the way I always do, by telling you, until next time, to be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Bye-bye.